Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Junia Doan's The Spark. I'm Junia Doan, and thank you for joining us. Today, I will be speaking with Suzy Farbman, columnist and author of Back from Betrayal, Saving a Marriage, and also God Signs. Welcome, Suzy. Suzy, I'm thrilled we're doing this. I've admired you for a lot of reasons, including your ability to write. You have written for Shelter magazines. You have written 2 books of quite personal nature. You have written columns and you have interviewed people. How is that writing came into your life as something you enjoyed?
Writing is just, it's a gift. Words are a gift. And I'm really, really grateful for it. I think I've been writing for a long time. I went to Kingswood School, Cranbrook, for middle school and high school. And we had a journal that was published every year and 1 essay per class. And my essay was on losing our mongrel Mickey when I was a kid. So that was my first official moment of being published. And I guess it got into my skin, and and I feel very blessed that I'm able to communicate with people through words.
Do you find you have different styles when you write about your own life versus writing columns?
I hope not. The style that I always long for and look for and try to establish is my own voice, and I want it to feel very conversational. I also, as a reader, really appreciate economy of words. And I am so grateful for my readers' time that I don't want to waste a single word. So I sort of go on among other things, a that chase. I try to get rid of the word that whenever I can, because it's just an extra word.
Can you hear it when you write it, can you hear whether the words are right? In other words, emotional enough or engaging enough?
Yeah, it's really important to establish a voice, but I try to be really consistent.
And when you went to all those workshops to learn writing, what did you take away from them? What was their approach?
Well, the most valuable thing of all, the first book I wrote was a memoir about getting through a marriage crisis. And I was working on it just as a journal because, I was talking in my journal about my concerns. And then I went to and then I tried to fictionalize it. I tried to write the story. My pen name was going to be Anonymous, and it just wasn't working. After about a year or so of writing, I ran into a creative writing professor, and I told her that I knew I had a good story, and I knew it was a story that was going to be really helpful to a lot of people, but I just was doing a terrible job of writing it because I was a journalist and I was writing it as a journalist. And she recommended a course in creative nonfiction. And that was a term I had never even heard before. And as soon as I went to this course, I thought, oh boy, I've been a journalist my whole career. I understand how to write journalism. I don't understand how to write fiction. So I had to sort of put myself through a crash course and work with some really good authors, among them Joyce Maynard, who wrote a memoir about her relationship with J.D. Salinger, and learn how to craft creative nonfiction, which required all the techniques of fiction writing. So it was a struggle, and each of my first two books took me 5 years apiece.
Well, you learned. Is journaling something you do daily now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I try to write 1 to 2 hours a day. Then my brain's usually fried after that.
I understand there are different ways to do it. One is to just flush out whatever's just running around in your head or what you're concerned about or dreaming about. What works for you, or what's the pleasure or the pain in writing?
Right. It's an exercise in joy. Anne Lamott, who's one of the writers I so admire, said, write the first draft with the door closed. And so I like to do that. I just put down what I need to put down. If there's something that's really, really so painful that I can't share it publicly, then I'll write it on my iPad just for myself.
Interesting. Is it a way to find yourself, as it were, in the moment?
Absolutely. Yeah. And to tap into my thoughts and to, when I was going through that marriage trauma, my journal was my friend, and my journal was the friend I talked to. And I'd like to say I journal every day. I don't.
Right.
But when chips are down, I certainly am.
Was the journal a resource in writing the book?
Yeah, for that and for the book about my cancer struggle. I took copious notes in journals, and so I had all that, all that information right there.
Tell us what the first book was about.
The first book was about getting through a marriage crisis. We had been married for quite a while. I had held back on my career as a writer. I was just doing freelance contributing editor kind of work for the Detroit News and all of our city magazines. And then when our two sons were old enough and I had time really to go for it, I got this fantastic position as a regional design editor for Better Homes and Gardens and a group of related special interest publications. And I was working with a super talented photographer, Beth Singer, and we pitched Meredith magazines and came away with this wonderful gig. So for 5 years, I was getting paid to look at gorgeous homes and write about them and photograph them. I mean, what could be more fun than that? But the problem was the timing. My husband, Bert, was in the process of burning out. He had worked really hard in real estate and built a company and felt that if he kept going, he wasn't going to make it. So he decided to retire just as my career was really ramping up. And, the inevitable occurred. I wasn't around for him to enjoy. So someone else was. And I continued to avoid confronting that as best I could for as long as I could. And ultimately, I was unable to. So at that point, we went for marriage counseling. We went to a marriage retreat and got through it. It was a really rough year. And so writing about that was really therapeutic for me. And it was as though when I was able to craft a story that would be helpful to other people, there was like at least some kind of purpose or meaning in what I went through and what we went through.
Didn't Bert, your husband, sort of push back on your writing something so private publicly?
That's what is really quite remarkable about him. He too thought it would help other people. And he knew how important it was for me. And so he supported me. I admire your courage to get through all this. But over the arc of your life, I will say, when you developed cancer and he made a monumental effort to save your life, I was so moved at that time by that commitment, because he's a man with a lot of energy.
and purpose. What did you share in common with him at the beginning of your marriage?
You know, it's funny. I think they say opposites attract, and that would definitely be the case with the two of us. He was, although he's a nonconformist, and I think I'd probably have to say that about myself. And he's very adventuresome, but we don't have a whole lot in common, except, you know, when I first started going out with him, you know, not only was I attracted to him, but I felt that the two of us were really so different that we would together create amazing children. And in fact, we did. Our sons are spectacular, and our grandchildren equally so.
And Bert is very, in his own way, my impression, philosophical. What has he taught you over these years?
Well, it's very interesting. You know, I might get choked up when I talk about this now, because this is what we're going through at the moment. He has had lymphoma, and he had brain cancer surgery, and had a stroke in the process. And he's left-handed. His left side shut down. So he's been in a wheelchair, electric wheelchair, and doing the best he can to get by, you know, using his right hand. And when I say to him, you know, how amazed I am at how brave and stoic he is, he says, this is a quote, "You got to do the best you can with what you got." And it's his attitude, and he's really quite remarkable. And it is what it is. But it's been very difficult lately.
He's the one who's like a safe harbor, I'm guessing, for you. And now it must be that you're the safe harbor for him in some degree.
Yeah, I definitely would. Yeah, he's an amazing man.
What did you try to raise your children, not to be, but to have in them as a philosophy of life? What character issues were important to you for them to learn, or at least hear?
Our first son, David, when he was first born, had this curly dark hair and was, you know, among the cutest babies you ever saw. And people would stop us and say, "Oh, your son is so gorgeous. He's beautiful." And I would always say to David, what is more important than being handsome or beautiful? And he'd say, "I know, Mom, I know," to be smart and thoughtful and considerate. So, you know, I always tried to downplay the physical aspects, and encourage character building.
Yes, I see that. So it must be lonely for you now with Bert, where he is in life. How do you deal with that, or the emotions that come out of this major challenge?
First of all, it's not lonely because I still have him. And as I have said to him on numerous occasions, I'd rather have some of you than none of you. So I'm not lonely because A, he's here, and B, we have a wonderful caregiver, Faiz, who happily just got his vaccine today. Burton and I are still waiting. But Faiz he's a great guy. So I'm not lonely in terms of the sense that there are people around all the time. And also we live in a golf course community in Sarasota. And I have a lot of pals here. I have lots of wonderful friends in Detroit. And so, you know, I'm just blessed that I know really interesting, terrific people, and they come through.
How do you structure your days?
Well, when my brain is the freshest, which is the morning, I'll write for a couple of hours. I'll break to have lunch with Burton. Then I'm likely to go on a bike ride. I try to ride my bike every day. I have sciatica issues, Yes, indeed. Mother Nature has a way of reminding us that we're not getting any younger.
Yes.
And so riding my bike is a good alternative because walking is, it can be pretty uncomfortable for me. So I ride my bike, and I generally will go hit some golf balls on the range if I'm not actually playing. I try to play golf a couple times a week. Not as how you could tell from the from the size of my handicap, but I keep trying. And uh, and these days cook a lot or heat up a lot. Thank goodness for Costco. They have some really good dishes that we've brought home and reheated. And I seem like I'm like a cooking star. And of course, as honest as it's in my nature to be, if somebody will say to me, for instance, I had this really good cook over the other night. She said, "How long did you cook these short ribs?" And I said, 20 minutes.
It is, yeah, cute. All of us has had a lot of challenges in life. When you get a challenge, what's the first thing you think of or do?
Take a deep breath and depending on the extent of it, pick up my iPad and write about it.
Can Bert do swim therapy or not? I mean, like they did for FDR.
No, he has a catheter, so it doesn't work. It doesn't work for him.
Yes. Can he get over the stroke? My grandmother had 4 strokes and 3 heart attacks between 80 and 90, and she came back from each one.
Well, he has come back to the greatest extent he can, but his left side does remain shut down. He's able to walk using an up walker, and he's really diligent about doing his, exercises and physical therapy. Sadly, his left arm will not come back.
Just have to go forward. That's the
That's
best.
right. Something
I was
else.
thinking the other day, can love be taught? And I don't know why I was thinking about that, but do you think that can be taught?
Love. Can love be taught? Yeah, I guess I think it can. Yeah, with enough time and patience. Yeah.
The way I handle challenges is very different from when I was younger. And younger, I sort of worried a lot. Now I don't really worry. I mean, I worry, but it's not systemic. Yeah. It's like, oh, here we go again, another bad thing showing up. What are we going to do to handle it? And I don't know if that's called life experience or I don't know what, but it's not that it's easier, but I think aging, I actually think, is a wonderful process because until I was 70, I don't think I was I was there underneath, but there were so many layers that had to burn off or fall off. And I see now as the years go by, I get pure. I don't know what my friends would say, Suzy, so you'll have to comment. But it's like I get purer and purer. The flame is purer because the other things seem, if not less important, just, that's the way it is. And much calmer.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think you're right. I think part of getting older is maybe becoming somewhat more accepting and learning a little better to go with the flow. Because fighting, what does it accomplish?
I don't know that I go with the flow. It's just, it's like I've seen the drama before. I've seen the play before. So it's not new and I don't need a fresh reaction. I swore when I was a young, 25-year-old that I would never be quiet and calm and all that stuff when I was older. But I found now that I'm getting a little more calm, relatively speaking, that the thing I never understood at 25 was that you're calm, maybe because you're sick, maybe because you have no energy, or as I call it, you've seen the play before. Right? It just isn't as surprising. And I had this immense flood if you're in Midland. And it really hurts me to go over to the house because if I do a really good job, it'll only look the way it was. And I'm more about creation, new creations. And yet I believe I love American residential architecture, and I like keeping it. I never thought we really, like in Detroit and Grosse Pointe, we let all those wonderful houses get, demolished. What a mistake that was. But anyway, so in part I'm fixing it because it's of a period. And so sometimes I have to give myself a pep talk on that because it's restoration, it's not initiation.
Right.
And at this stage of your life, what interests you?
Well, first of all, I think one thing that has really also helped me get through this period is when the pandemic started, I started attempting to meditate. I'm not any good at it in the sense that, I'm able to like clear my head or empty my mind or anything. But I feel like just that 20 minutes that I do first thing every morning, I know that if I don't do it first thing every morning, I won't do it. I feel like somehow or other it's helped me to stay somewhat calmer and to be less inclined to freak out. So that's part of that is a coping skill, which I recommend. When I ride my bike, I often listen to podcasts, including Junia, Doan, the Spark.
Oh, appreciate that.
Yeah. And one of the podcasts I listen to is Dan Harris's 10% Happier. And he has some really interesting guests on. And he had one recently who was a Native American meditation teacher. And she said something very interesting. And I've been meditating on it and think it's worth repeating to you and your viewers. And that would be, she said, she reminds herself that nothing is perfect, nothing is permanent, and nothing is personal.
Oh, that's tricky, the last one.
Yeah, it is tricky.
Even in Indian culture, they have to get away from personalizing things.
Yeah.
Is that what you took of it, or she's in the American culture and it came out of that?
No, she was raised on a reservation.
That's really interesting. I find that I've either aged out of a lot of volunteer work, or I've become, the go-to person for, can you introduce me to, or whatever. And I ask myself the same questions I'm asking you. What is asked of me right now? What do I not need to do? What gives meaning? What gives joy? Can I laugh? When I went on the lockdown, the first 2 days, I thought I was like a political prisoner in the Orient. But then I felt it was a gift of freedom, of time. And even with the flood and all that, I feel I've used it differently. And in fact, going forward now, and Florida is really open, and you're in Florida, but we're not open in Michigan, and I don't want to get, I don't want to go so that I go back to my old life or that I'm afraid of a new life. I just want to start over again and see what be original or different. And I think that can apply even when you have a structure like you have right now in Florida, with birth, the family, this, that. I know you're doing a new book. Tell us about that.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, it was a project that was dreamed up by some girlfriends of mine who I think saw me on a Zoom call one day, and I was looking pretty lackluster. And the next day they came up with the project for me. As you can kind of see from what's behind me, I'm interested in contemporary art. And in Detroit, there was a fabulous art dealer named Gertrude Castle who brought a number of really well-known artists to Detroit, Philip Guston, Tworkov, and on. And she was succeeded in her space in the Fisher Building, which, speaking about architecture, my great uncle was Albert Kahn, and he was the designer, the architect of the Fisher Building. So I have special memories of that place. Anyway, there was a gal named Jackie Feiginson. The name Feiginson was known in Detroit at the time because the Feiginson brothers created Faygo Pop, which was a big deal like in the 70s and 80s. So Jackie opened a gallery of a number of what came to be known as cast corridor artists. These were a number of artists who were living and working near Wayne State University around the Cass Corridor, which is Cass is a street in Midtown Detroit. And a lot of really interesting artwork came out of that period. And I was pretty impressed with Jackie Feiginson as a dealer and wanted to support her. And so for our 10th wedding anniversary, I bought the first piece from the first show that she did by an artist named Michael.
Suzy, I'm so regretful. I have to interrupt. We're getting out of time. Her new book is going to be called Cass Corridor. Look for it. So we've learned a lot from Suzy, mostly as you ride the wave, and that if you have some practice in your life, that you can orient you. In her case, it's writing and self-reflection, that it's like having a friend with you. So be a friend to yourself. Go out and do something kind for someone you know, and do it again next week. And thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Suzy. It was fun.
Thank you. I always love being with you.
To contact Junia, send her an email at juniadownsthespark@gmail.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadownthespark.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time on Junia Doan's The Spark.
Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.